as the ship seemed to be heading directly for the creatures, and no one else seemed to be aware of their presence. Delius leaped out in their direction, flying like a rocket through space, finding just a narrow enough window between the asteroids flying around in all directions, taking aim for one of the asteroids on which he sensed one of the creatures was hiding, swinging a haymaker punch that shattered the asteroid into tiny pieces, exploding it in all directions, as the creature clinging to it flew back a short distance before, without even clinging to another stone, seemed to steady himself in space, that rainbow glow beginning to emit from segments of its body, as with those rainbow eyes of its, it gave him the closest thing he could surmise to a dirty glare, a look that says, "I'm angry with you, if nothing else." And in that very instant, came rushing at Delius, a flash of fluorescent rainbow lighting, as it propelled itself in his direction rapidly, and Delius prepared himself as best he could to defend, being that he had accidentally stranded himself without a boulder to push off of. Pulling his sword to bear and ready for the impact, he was surprised when a sudden bolt of black shot past, slamming into the creature with a flare of red fire, leaving a trail behind it as it bolted deeper into the asteroid field, smashing through multiple asteroids before impacting a larger one, pinning the creature to it. It was Jax's Godslayer, burning red fire eking out of its form as it pinned the creature down, reeling back with one fist that bellowed even more flame, launching it out as it smashed into the creature, destroying the asteroid that it was on top of, and sending the creature hurtling off into space, bouncing between asteroids erratically. "You know, you really should be more careful," Delius heard from beside him as Regimen swooped in nearby, that red glow still enwrapping his form, as he looked as carefree as ever, snapping his fingers as another boulder seemed to move itself, now covered in a red glow itself, and finding a pathway down below Delius so that he could stand on it. "Remember, we're in space, you moron. If you launch an attack, it's best to have something to stand on when it's over. There's nothing to push off of out here. So unless you learn to fly, you'll basically be a sitting duck for these things," he said, as Delius began to see another one of them on a nearby stone, peering out towards Regimen, who was giving his speech. "Regimen!" Delius exclaimed, trying to direct his attention towards the creature, but it was too late. In a single shot, it bolted from the stone it was on, smashing it, catapulting its way towards Regimen, who turned around just in time to notice it. Delius wanted to push off, to counter, but the stone still hadn't made contact with him yet. He couldn't move, and with no way to stop it, the creature impacted Reginald. With the long claws extending from its fingers, it ripped straight through him, tearing his whole body in two, as the top half of his body separated from the bottom, drifting upwards as there was a spray of red blood floating about in space. As in the instant after it dashed Regimen in two, it steadied itself in space, beginning to face towards Delius, ready to launch out for another attack. Delius grit his teeth. The battle's only just started, and I already lost one. Damn it, he thought to himself, as the boulder beneath him finally took place, and he grasped hold of it, trying to steady himself, as the creature looked like it was raring to make another dash. And in that exact moment, when he expected to be fighting the creature himself, Regimen's body seemed to dissipate into a swirl of red fire that rapidly grew larger, more than 10 times his normal size, as in this swirling gout of fire in space. Some monstrous new form appeared. Some creature. Its body seemed humanoid in shape, except it had hooves instead of feet. Thick brown fur seemed to cover its body, with large horns protruding from the top of its head. The creature was whirling in the same direction that the fire was, without ever stopping this whirling, spinning in space. The creature balled up two of its fists, and the aliens that inhabited the sector, at least the one that was standing beside Regimen, looked completely taken off guard by it, as this sudden flurry of flame turned into a monstrosity 10 times its size, and with two ball fists slammed into it, sending the creature flying out in a different direction. As this mammoth creature's spin finally came to a halt, and in another whirl of flame, suddenly retracted back, once again reducing itself down to Regimen, who simply spun his cane in his hand as his body seemed to coalesce from the flames. Well, that was, let's say, uncomfortable. Note to self: basic defensive barrier useless. They will chop you in half with a single strike anyways. That's something to remember, Regimen said, as his eyes glanced over towards Delius, who stared at him in shock. What? You expected me to be done in that easily? Come now. I didn't kill the devil just to get done in by a scaly space monster. But I must say I did underestimate the odds a bit. Perhaps I should even them out, Regimen said as he switched which hand he was holding his cane with, tossing it over to the other as he extended his right hand, and with a snap at the end of his fingers and another flash of red, the red glow around his body intensifying. Emerge, Champas, he said, as what appeared to be a red flaming rip in space began to tear itself open, billowing fire, flame, and smoke, as some massive creature seemed to crawl from it. Delius had never seen anything like it. It had skin like stone, long claws that grasped at the edge of this portal or tear in what seemed like the fabric of reality itself. Protruding from it, a long snout of some kind, a set of jaws, massive ones. This creature had to be nearly 60 foot in length as it crawled its way out of this portal. Strange objects protruding from its body, like crystals that seemed to dart out in different directions, glowing different colors, as the creature grabbed hold of a nearby meteor. It actually needed several. It had 6 legs, all with razor-sharp claws at the end of them, a long tail, covered in crystalline spikes, and as it opened its mouth, a burning red glow around its form, and inside, rows of teeth, what seemed like countless of them, and 2 separate tongues that foiled out, whipping and lashing around in different directions, the tongues themselves seeming to be protruding with some sort of spikes. Okay, Chompas, go fetch, Regimen said, as this monstrous beast launched itself from the boulders it was grasping in the direction of the creature that Regimen had just struck. Oh, I bet he's going to have fun, Regimen said, as, without another word, he simply flew off in another direction, appearing to look for more of the creatures. As Delius watched him fly away, in the beginning he had felt worried that perhaps the odds were more against them, but these individuals didn't seem to have any fear at all. The people he knew from the other outer worlds were quite frightful, without guns and machines and cannons at hand, and even with them, they still seemed to have a great deal of fear when it came to dealing with anyone who seemed to be anywhere near Delius's level of power. But these individuals were not like that at all, and in the moment, Delius couldn't help but feel a bit happy, and even a bit excited. Perhaps this wouldn't be so terrifying after all. Whether these individuals were gods or not, they were most certainly interesting.